Interest rates are going up. Trying to get ahead is mighty, mighty tough. Bill collectors at my door. I need someone to help me raise my credit score.
Welcome back to another edition of the Polto show. Before I forget, we have a really exciting show today, but before I forget, next week is our new hour. Next Wednesday, we're on at 7 p.m., and you don't want to miss that. We're going to be talking about my book, Are We Doomed? Enough is Enough in This Presidency and What's Going On with This Country. I've always started the shows, and I start the shows by saying, what does it take to get your attention? I think today I'm going to get your attention because we all live in cities. 911 is approaching us, and how many people and how many firemen has lost their lives, and how we back up each one of them, and then we praise them. Well, let's look at the professions. If I hear a doctor saved your life, you're going to remember him for a short time, and then you're going to forget his name. If your home was being robbed, then the person that had a gun and you called 911 and the cop came to save you, and he did. Well, you're going to remember him, and then 3 years later, you're going to forget his name as well. If your home was on fire and you were in the bedroom and a fireman came and sacrificed his life to save you, you would remember his name for so many years, and then you forget as well. All of these people just saved you from dying. We come to say, well, he's getting paid for it. A doctor for saving your life, a cop for saving your life, and a fireman to save you from the fire. Well, two of these professions that saved your life is not getting paid top dollar. But the doctor that saved your life, he's getting paid millions. And these other two professions, we should be backing up, but we're not. Why? Because you live to tell about it. Or is it that their job, now let's suppose they all went on strike the day your home was on fire. Let's suppose the cops or the firemen. Let's suppose the firemen went on strike the day your house was being burnt. How would you feel? Would it get your attention? Or who would you blame? Would you blame the firemen or would you blame the mayor? No, our mentality is to blame the men that was supposed to come out to put out the fire. How dare them not come to your home? The point I'm getting at is the people of this great city of Philadelphia, have to back up our firemen and write to the mayor and let him know what would the mayor do if his home was on fire and there was a brownout. Or we're going to find out all these questions. What would Philadelphia do if crimes were being committed and the cops were on strike? Sorry, they're not allowed to be on strike. Sorry. If you work for a company and you don't like what's going on, what does a person do? We go on strike. Whatever you can work for a bus company, as we've seen on the news. You can work for the casinos, if you've seen on the news. But what if you work for the city of Philadelphia or any other major city and other cities and they can't go on strike? The union and the mayor have been on odds for years over the contract and a series of cut-costing moves the administration has imposed. Plus the rolling closures of stations known as brownouts, which we're going to hear about today. The mayor of Philadelphia, Mayor Nutter, has not tipped his hand. But if he decides to appeal, he could cite belief that the contract is not affordable. The two jobs are at life and death, is the fireman and the police. And these are the two jobs having problems in our city with the mayor. We all have heard of our Vice President, Joe Biden, remarks to the National Firefighters where he praised its members. The one thing he didn't say, Mr. Nutter, or of Philadelphia, you should honor your agreement with these men and women, put their lives on the line for us, and then it's up to us as well to put our lives on the line for them with our voice, with letters. My guest today, I say things are meant to be for a reason. And this was a great reason. I always say God works in strange ways. Well, he did in my case. I had to have firemen over my place in the last month. And this is why I said this was meant to be, to find out the problems that we're having in our city that you do not know we're having. And I want you, the people out there, if you're from Philadelphia or from any major city, look what's going on. Have you ever rode up to a fireplace to say, what's the problem here? No. If your place is on fire, you expect the fire engines to get there. If you expect anything, until I found out when I wanted to do the show, they're not even allowed to talk to the media. One fireman said, hey, you know what? I put out a fire and I wasn't even allowed to have my picture taken in the front page of the boy that I saved. Wasn't allowed. Well, my guest today, he's going to talk, and he's going to talk openly, and mayor of every city, including this city, and people, I hope not only you hear this show, I always have an old expression, don't just listen to the show, hear what we're saying, and let's make a point, because it may be your home that's on fire tomorrow, and you didn't make your point to save this city. I'd like to welcome my guest. He's Battalion Chief Michael Kane. Welcome to the Polto Show.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Pearl. I'd like to put one caveat there. I'm a retired Battalion Chief. I served 33 years in the City of Philadelphia's Fire Department. I retired as a Battalion Chief. I've been out about a year and a half now, but I am still very active in the local. I am the chairman of trustees at Local 22. I've held that position for 7 years, and there's 4 things I'd like to talk about today. The first thing is our contract negotiations with the city has just appealed for the second time. I'm going to explain a little bit about binding arbitration and why we feel that the mayor is not holding up his end of the bargain. The second thing I'd like to talk about is public safety. With the recent, in 2009, Mayor Nutter had he closed 7 companies. He didn't close the firehouses. What he did, he took one company out of each 7 different firehouses, took 5 engines and 2 ladders out of service, and then shortly after that instituted what they call a brownout.
What is a brownout?
A brownout is when they there's a list of firehouses, and randomly they will be browned out. I actually have one of the brownout schedules here. And one day, a company from West Philly might be browned out, engine 34 or
browned
engine
out means
57.
what? They close
It's closed for that shift.
Okay.
So we work 10-hour days and 14-hour nights, and some companies are browned out or closed for the day, and some are closed for the night.
It could be my fire department that's closed for the day.
That's correct.
Just for the day,
Just
or
for
they
the day.
close it permanently?
No, just for the day.
So if I had a fire, what would happen?
The companies that are next over, the nearest company to your home would have to come. In other words, if you live two blocks away from a firehouse that was browned out, and the next closest firehouse was 18 blocks away, this one wouldn't get to your house. The one that's 18 blocks away,
but wouldn't my house burn down quicker?
And that's what
or somebody could die?
Absolutely, it's already happened. It's already happened in the city of Philadelphia.
Where has it happened in the city of Philadelphia?
There was a little later when I talk about this. There was one particular fire after this a station had been browned out during the day, and they had to go to up to the shop to get their equipment because their apparatus had been put out of service for repairs. So when they went up for the 6 o'clock, they reported to work at 6 o'clock at night, and when they went up to pick up their apparatus, a fire happened 2 blocks away, 5600 Chestnut Street. 55th and Chestnut, and a young man who was a special needs child had ran back into a house. And instead of getting the company coming from 57th and Walnut, what they got was the company coming from 52nd and Willows. And just
we have a monopoly here, though, because here's a person that died in a fire. They did not know that even what brownout even was, and they knew their station was closed. The mayor, the news media isn't letting this out, obviously.
No, it was out because we had a big rally up there with the citizens. We had state representatives, we had city council people there, and they pleaded with Mayor Nutter, and nothing came of it.
So they're pleading with him to keep these stations open.
Absolutely.
What is the problem of not keeping it open?
It's all about money. It's all about, the city's telling us that, we can do less, we can do more with less, and it's just not feasible.
If I lived in, which I do, and there's 2 firehouses, I'd want them to come ASAP and not say, hey, what are your plans? I don't want somebody to come 8 miles away. But now that I know this is happening, this is pretty sad for the people of Philadelphia.
Well, later on when we talk about this, I'm going to give this the website, Philadelphia Firefighters website, and you can go on there. There's 3 different Comcast sections where you can go on, and one of the issues is that fire that happened on 55th Street, and you can listen to City Council Janie Blackwell. You can listen to the state representative that was there, and you can listen to members of the executive board of Local 22 who tried to tell everybody, we warned the city that this was going to happen sooner or later, and it did happen. And basically, the vice president of our union, Timmy McShay, apologizing to the parents of this person, like, sorry we weren't there. And you look at the firemen in the crowd, and they got tears in their eyes because you don't think they wanted to come and help that young man.
Does the people blame you, or do they blame the city?
No, they understand. They understand.
Do they know what's going on?
Yes, I think they do.
When they're closing, you've heard of the news in the last year that they're closing this station, this station, this station. This is all because of the brownout, or are they closing it because of lack of funds, lack of money? What is their excuse? What's the mayor's excuse?
Well, I would like to, instead of going off on this fire thing, let me go through our contract.
Okay.
Then the safety issue with the closures and the brownouts. Then I'd like to talk about the EMS system, which in Philadelphia is completely broken. Over this past holiday weekend, constant times whereas the city run out of rescue squads, well, medic units. I show my age calling them rescue squads, but medic units. In fact, there was a call up in Pine Valley in the northeast section of Philadelphia where the first responder company, and what happens is if a medic unit isn't available, they'll send the closest engine company or ladder company because they have EMTs on there, they have oxygen, they have everything until the medic unit gets there to help this person. They waited 45 minutes for an elderly gentleman, having difficulty breathing. They went through, I believe, 2.5 tanks of oxygen waiting for a rescue squad, a medic unit that was coming from 52nd and 53rd and Cedar, from Misericordia Hospital to Pine Valley in the Northeast. I actually had a thing when I was the captain of Engine 41, which is at 61st and Thompson. And what happened was it was the first run of the morning. It was in this winter time for a patient, a young man with asthma attack. We got there. It was around 60th and Arch, 60th and Race, around there. And luckily, I had a paramedic who had quit the paramedic side and came over to the fire side as one of my men. And when we got there, this young man's about 8 or 10 years old, severe distress. This kid's going down. And I'm getting a medic unit from the far northeast because all the medic units in West Philadelphia and Center City and surrounding areas are all gone. All right, everybody's out. So basically, what happens is a lot of times the rescue units, they'll hear this. If somebody's really far away, guys will make themselves available real fast and jump on that call because they know that they don't want to wait. So that medic turns around to me and says, "Get an ETA. Find out hey, this kid's really is having problems." So I go outside and I said, "Are we still getting medic 20 from Engine 22 station, which is in the far northeast?" And they said, "That's affirmative." And I said, "Give me an ETA on this rescue squad." And the rescue squad came back. Now, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's rush hour traffic. If anybody in the city of Philadelphia is coming down Roosevelt Boulevard at 95, 8 o'clock in the morning, you know what kind of traffic conditions we have. And basically, the medic and the rescue squad said about 45 minutes. And I turned around and I said, "I don't have 45 minutes. I said, "Give me a police car to this location." Thank God there was a police car in the area, jumped through the kid, the medic, and the oxygen bottle in the back of that police car, and they rode, lights and sirens, got this kid to the hospital, over to Misericordia Hospital, and thank God he lived.
People didn't know it, though.
They didn't know that.
People didn't know it.
But, I testified to this in arbitration hearings about the, EMS and the problems we're having in it, and they basically shrugged their shoulders like, they're going to roll the dice.
You have a contract with the mayor right now, and you're having problems with it. What is in this contract that the mayor is so against?
All right. I would like to do a little history on the city of Philadelphia. Firefighters have something called a binding arbitration, Act 111, which is a state law. And basically what happened more than 40 years ago, this was instituted in 1968. And what happened was the people in the city and the people in the state realized that police and firemen, public safety is too important to let them strike. So when we go into contract negotiations, instead of having an impasse where they would have the threat of a strike, they'll say, you know what, we passed this law, we're going to have binding arbitration. So when you meet and you arbitrate and you can't find it, we're going to bring in a neutral arbitrator. Two sides will present their argument, and that neutral arbitrator will, an award is binding and final and binding. And we, in the 40 years that we've been in that, we have never once, Local 22 has never once appealed any contract. All right, we just, when Mayor Rendell came in, we lost 45% of our health care. We had a 2-tier pension system in there, no raises for a couple of years, and we went, you know what? That's the process. We're not going to, we're not going to appeal this. But what happened was, right after Wilson Good's term at 8 years, Wilson Good, after the second move fiasco on Osage Avenue, everybody knows that the city was broke. Ed Rendell came into that city, took a look at the books, and went, oh my God, we're in trouble. Because basically tens of millions of dollars were going to straighten out the mess that Wilson Good did. All right? So he goes to the state, and the state takes one look at it, and the state believes that if it wasn't for the state, the city of Philadelphia would go under. So they instituted something called the PICA statute. The PICA statute is the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Control Agency. And what has to happen for the city of Philadelphia to get money from the state, they have to give a 5-year plan every year, updated every year, to the state. And the state has to approve that 5-year plan in order for them to get state money. Mm-hmm. So for years, we have had binding arbitration where it's binding fine. But something that the state legislators put in that was the Section K of the PICA law. And what Section K says is that when you go into binding arbitration, if the neutral must take into account the city's ability to pay. So what's happened for the last 20 years is every time we get an award, the city appeals it because we ain't got no money. We're broke. So basically what happens is the city appeals it, and we go back. It gets awarded back to the panel. We go back into arbitration. We hammer it out, and the deal's done. And that's the way.
What do you need done to get this passed by our mayor? I mean, if this is going back and forth for arbitration, there has to be something that even the people can do to help out the firemen.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's up to the people. I think it's going to be settled in the courts because right now, like I said, it was appealed the first time. It sat in Judge. I actually have the whole rundown of our latest contract. And basically what happened is they didn't like what happened. They sent it to a judge. The judge sat on it for approximately 10 months. He was up for re-election. He's not going to deal with it. If he sides with the city, he loses the Democratic backing in the city. If he sides with labor,
let me ask you a stupid question. If
right.
all the firemen, with all this going back and forth with contracts, and the people are at risk here when they really are, what would happen if the firemen said, that's it, we've had it, we're all done, we're not coming and work tomorrow?
Never happened. You're talking about 2,000, 2,100 of the most dedicated men and women, not only firefighters, but paramedics. We live in the city too. Mm-hmm. Our children live in the city. Our wives work in the city. Our kids go to the schools in the city. And we're not going to do that. And the
so you're
problem
for the
is,
people. You're for the people.
The problem is the city knows that, and they bank on it. They know how dedicated we are. And Bill Green once said a thing where they were bitching about something was happening with Bill Green, and he wanted to do something, and they said, what about the firemen? What about it? Bill Green said, do you see any fires burning today that were burning yesterday? These guys will do the job. What are you worrying about? And it's the truth. We have some of the most dedicated firefighters and medics in the country, and they know it, and they bank on it.
When we come back, we're going to talk about why this gentleman is so brave even coming on here, and why. Because no fireman is allowed to come on and say it like it is. So please listen carefully when we come back.
I'm consumer protection lawyer Kerry Flitter. You've heard me as a guest on the Pearl Polto Show. We often get calls from consumers complaining about their experience at a car dealership. Very often a dealer will advertise a low interest rate, But when you go to sign for the loan, you get stuck with a higher interest rate. Sometimes they'll blame your credit history, whether that's the real reason or not. There are laws in place that protect consumers from these and other unfair tactics that are sometimes practiced by some of the car dealers. We know the rules that the car dealers have to live by, whether Pennsylvania or New Jersey. If you feel you've been taken advantage of, call us for a no-cost consultation at 888-668-1225. That's 888-668-1225, or visit our website, consumerslaw.com. That's consumers with an S, consumerslaw.com. If we accept your case, our fees are paid only by the car dealer at the end of your case. 888-668-1225. We'll be happy to work for you.
You're listening to the Pearl Polto Show. Don't forget, next week we're on at 7 p.m. And the guest next week is myself, yours truly, talking about my new book that's on Kindle right now, Are We Doomed? Enough is Enough. My guest today is ex-fireman Mike Kane. Now, you know, when I always say, what is a fireman? He was the guy next door in Philadelphia with a memory of the little boy. He's never gotten over the excitement of engines and sirens and danger. He's the guy like you and me who wants and worries about unfulfilled dreams. He's a fireman. He puts all of it on the line when the bell rings. A fireman at one time is the most fortunate and least fortunate of men. He's a man who saves lives because he has been seeing so much death. He's a gentleman because he's seen the awkward powers of violence out of control, and he's responsible to a child's laughter because his arms held so many small bodies that will never laugh again. He's a man who appreciates the simple pleasures of life: hot coffee, unbending fingers, and a warm bed for bone and muscles beyond feelings. He doesn't wear buttons or wave flags or shouts out. When he marches, it's to the honor of fallen comrade. He doesn't even preach the brotherhood of man. He lives it. And he has a word to say, and his voice will be heard today, will be heard loud and clear. But before we talk about why he cannot come on, why he shouldn't be on, or why anybody, a fireman, cannot come on, radio, TV, or whatever, we're going to first go into the contract.
Yeah. The city has basically said they have no money. And Michael Zobarak, who was the neutral arbitrator, in his decision stated a couple things. And one was, and this is directly from the arbitration award, the city is in the process of recovering more than $900 million in unpaid taxes and penalties, as well as $1 billion in bail defaults. The tax amnesty program ended in June 25 of 2010, generated approximately $60 million in additional revenues. And this has been a systemic problem as far as uncollected bills. I have a thing here from 2008, which is the city controller's thing, and basically said in 1 year that was analyzed, instead of collecting $60 million, for the city collected only $25 million. They're talking about collecting for EMS runs. The city provides EMS, that's ALS, which is advanced life, and also BLS, which is basic life support, and they charge for this cost. So in the 1 year, instead of collecting $60 million, the city only collected $25 million. That means $35 million went uncollected. This is Alan Bucklewitz is saying. According to the fire department's own records, since the year 2000, more than $125 million went uncollected. There's also $117 million in uncollected water bills, and we found out there have been people who successfully been keeping from the water bills as long as 15 years. He said you can't run a $4 billion business a year with the big gaping holes in collection and reimbursement that's done. Not only water bills not being collected, gas bills, hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of the money that's being spent right as of today, if you go around City Hall, they have a $50 million project to redo Dilworth Plaza. They have $20 million in reserve funds now to do Love Park next. They just had a concert over the weekend, and the city won't even let people know how much money that was spent there. So with all these unpaid bills, with all these that's been going on for decades, that people have been not paying their taxes, not paying their bills, and then you come to us and go, what's the problem? We ain't got no money. they have money for projects they want, but not for the firefighters.
Not for the fire. But suppose their house was on fire, though. But shouldn't, a lot of people would say, shouldn't we have less firemen because the population of the city has decreased? Everybody's going into suburbs?
That's a point. The point that we bring out is I came into the fire department in 1978. At that time, there was 2,850 firemen. It was about 2,800 firemen and about 50 paramedics. Today, we have 2,100. All right, we have about 1,900 firefighters and 200 paramedics. It's round numbers, but I'm close. So the idea in this, in the past 35 years, where the population of the city has decreased by 25%, so has the population of the fire department been decreased 25%. You know, since I've been on the job, they've closed probably 11 engine companies, 6 ladder companies. They decommissioned 2 battalions, 1 division, a fireboat, airport companies. I mean, we've been taking our hits all along.
Yeah, but you see, where are these firemen going?
Basically, we're losing through attrition. Guys are, retiring. Guys get hurt. Guys get killed.
But we have fires every day. I mean, we do have fires. So you're telling me where they're going and where they're not going. But what about the people that are sitting in their homes by saying, I'm a little bit scared right now after I'm hearing this guy because I could have a fire tomorrow. Is anybody going to come?
Well, former Commissioner Harold Hairston was in front of the budget committees a few years back, and they asked him if he could do more with less, and he said, I can only do less with less. And that's what it's about. You want to have the finest fire service in the country, then you got to fund it. And right now we are bare bones. I'm telling you, when we get into the public safety aspect of this interview, when I tell you to go on our website and look at these videos that we have, you'll understand what we're talking about, and you'll understand how critical it is to have companies there. When your house gets on fire, you need professional guys to get there and do the job right. And right now, we're running bare bones.
Well, you said a sentence to me right there. Public safety. Obviously, the firemen considered public safety of the people, but obviously the city and the mayor's department and the city council, who's not caring about the city? It's obvious right now what you're saying. What is this public safety? And we don't have public safety if we're having a brownout and closing stations. So who's the fault? Who's to blame? Is it because the city's out of money? Well, then the whole city must have burned down.
Well, the thing is, the core essence of the city of Philadelphia is the safety of its citizens. That's the number one job.
Right.
And the idea that you think you can do more with less is just, it's unconscionable that they think they can do it. And the one thing that was probably the most egregious statement that anybody from this administration ever said, basically, after Mayor Nutter closes 7 companies, all right, decommissions 5 engines, 2 ladders. A couple months later, they have rolling brownouts, 3 companies every day and every night. And we're telling the citizens of Philadelphia how unsafe this is. And Everett Gillison, the deputy director of public safety, gets on the news and says, oh, they're just a bunch of crybabies because they're not getting as much overtime now. And here's a guy, I did 33 years in the Philadelphia Fire Department in public safety. This is a guy that came from the prison systems. He has no background whatsoever in public safety, and he's going to talk to us about bitching about overtime. That to us, that was,
I think he was justifying it with the people.
Well, he's doing Michael Nutter's bidding is what he's doing. Hey, tell him they're just bitching about the overtime. We're not bitching about overtime. We're trying to tell you. Like I said, all firemen and all our families and all our children, we all live in this city. We understand how important it is to have people there when we need them. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's going on in the city.
And yet, you're trying. I don't think the people of Philadelphia knew what was going on in the city. And the reason why they didn't know what was going on in the city, you're not allowed to discuss it.
That's true. It's absolutely true.
This is the sad part that I'm hearing. You're not allowed to discuss to any of the media. I was told a story from a fireman that he saved a boy. And the newspaper wanted to put him on the front page. He wasn't allowed. Are we living in Russia? Why? You want to know. You have the answers here. Why aren't you allowed to speak? You are, because you're retired. But why aren't the rest allowed to speak? When I read the social media guideline, I went in shock. I'm saying I've never seen anything like this. You're like little school kids in a school that they're giving rules to, and you have to follow it, or you can get what?
Our discipline is out the window. We've been griping about it, all the way up to the managing director's office. We've been to the public safety director, Michael Resnick. Listen, you need to rein these people in. But basically, what it gets down to is I have General Memo 1280, which came out in August 1st of 2012.
I received that. I'm shocked at that. I'm appalled by it, as a matter of fact, and I think the people would be appalled by it.
Here's the thing everybody has to understand. There's certain things in this policy that are needed, because you don't want anybody going in and taking pictures of, God forbid, somebody that's having a heart attack or somebody that's burnt in a fire.
That's understandable.
Or you can't go and discuss, if you go on a medic run and somebody, God forbid, has some kind of medical condition, you don't want that on Facebook, because there's HIPAA violations, there's federal laws that protect people's rights and everything. But just like everything in this department, they go overboard. They instead of saying, listen, you're not going to discuss anything that happens on the job because of confidentiality with patients or whatever, But the idea that somebody, and I'll read them if you give me a second. These are two things that really jump out at you. Employees shall not identify themselves as a member of the Philadelphia Fire Department on any social media and network site without prior approval of the fire commissioner. So basically, when that young man was wanted to go they wanted to put him on the front page of a paper for making a rescue, he's terrified. He can't say yes. He could have went to the fire commissioner and said, can I have permission? Then it's up to the commissioner. But is that really what, like you said, is that what kind of life we got to live?
Do we live in America?
And the idea is the only exception to this will be professional networking site LinkedIn. I don't even know what that is. Postings that will only pertain to professional networking and development. And there's another one that says employees shall not post any photo, image, or video of themselves wearing any part of the official fire department uniform or displaying any city equipment without approval of the fire commissioner. So basically, every year we have Firefighters Appreciation Day. And basically what happens is we get reports from the previous year. Guys are making rescues. Guys are doing work out in the community. Guys are, doing all kind of great things. They're coaching softball. They're starting little league teams in the heart of North Philadelphia. And they'll get awards, and we'll give them union awards and say, I actually had my life saved by a firefighter who received Firefighter of the Year. So when they turn around and get this award and his wife goes click and puts it right on her Facebook with her phone, he could get reported because his wife, he didn't get permission to have his wife. In other words, this wife is so proud of her husband.
Of course.
Winning a heroism award.
Of course. Now, you said he could get reported, but what happens after he gets reported?
There's a whole process. You could have official charges brought up on you. Then you would have to go down to the SIO's office, which stands for the Special Investigative Officer. He has a series of questions. Why didn't you get the permission of the firefighter? Why didn't you get the permission of the fire commissioner to be on social media? And the idea that, you have, like I stated earlier, you have some of the most dedicated firefighters and medics in this country that work for the city of Philadelphia. They're proud of what they do. They love their job. I used to work in Germantown, Ladder 8. When I used to go over, I live in Roxborough, and I used to go over to Henry Avenue Bridge. I'd be going 65 miles an hour because I couldn't wait to get to go to work. I used to have guys on the radio, instead of saying Ladder 8 on radio, they used to go Ladder Grade on radio. That's how much pride they had. That's how much spirit of corps.
Wait a minute. Obviously, it was a different mayor during that time.
And a different commissioner.
So right now, what you're saying is the problem is with the system, not with the firemen, because you still have the same kind of firemen that have that dream. So what you're saying is you're not allowed to talk to the media. Your wife can't be proud of you because no one can even see that she's proud of you. And why? Because of the people we put into office.
That's right. And those people that are put in office appoint into positions. And here's the thing. I don't want this to be a bash Lloyd Ayres thing.
No, it's not a bash. People respect our mayor. People respect the firemen. But if they have a fire, they want to understand what's really going on. You're not bashing anybody. What you're making them do is understand, hey, this could be your home, and this what could happen to you because of what we're not getting.
Here's the thing. I've known Lloyd Ayres for over 30 years. Mm-hmm. He was my captain when I was a firefighter, who sat me down at the kitchen table one day and said, "Get the books out, boy. You're wasting your time. Start studying. Improve yourself." That guy who I had a ton of respect for and who the union pushed to have him become the fire commissioner after Harold Hairston is not the guy that I invited into my home 20 years ago who'd been in my kitchen with my wife and my children. What happened was he got that position, and he the biggest problem, not the problem, but the biggest thing about it, he forgot where he came from. Lloyd Ayres had a tremendous reputation as a firefighter. He was in North Philly, West Philly. He was a balls-to-the-wall guy. He was a good fireman. He was a good officer. He looked out after his men. But now I think he has so much pressure coming from City Hall to keep these guys under your thumb that the guy lost where he's, I'm more disappointed in him than anybody around. I mean,
we're coming up with the 9/11, and I'm sure New York is just like Philadelphia, and you've seen them all on the news, but you've never seen them interviewed. Is that the reason why we've never seen any firefighter actually on the news talking about what happened? They're not allowed.
Basically, when a news camera comes around and the guy sticks a mic in, you watch the guys. They'll go talk to the guy in the white hat, which the battalion chief had the white hats on. They don't want to get on camera, and I don't think it's so much this media policy that they're camera shy, but at a lot of times you're not allowed to speak about a fire. You're not allowed to say, "Geez, we came here and they didn't have any smoke detectors. They didn't have this." That's the department's job to come there, investigate that fire, and make an official statement. And if a fireman doesn't know the reasons behind why the fire started, or God forbid somebody died or somebody was burnt critically or something like that, you need to understand that that's the department's job to make that. That's why they have a public relations officer that comes to every major fire to speak to the media. That's just one of the things.
I was doing some homework on salaries. I'm appalled by the fact that, more power to you. I'd never become a fireman, and I'm out to help the people. But I'm finding out in Texas and other Louisiana, they're only getting paid $20,000 a year, and their lives are being taken. And what you're getting paid doesn't pay you enough. I don't understand why some people want to become firemen now to this day, maybe years ago, not today, because your life, every time you go out, and yet you're having problems with the system. Like, I want to save your life, but I can't. Sorry. Well, this is what you're saying to the people, and it's not him that's saying it.
When I talked about dedication, that's what it's about. But when we talk about the fire side, and I spoke earlier about the mayor's cuts and everything, I want everybody, listen to this cast, to come to Local 22's website. It's IAFF22.org. There's 3 videos on there. When you bring up that website, go down to Local 22, go to the home page, scroll down. There's 3 videos on there that you must see. And the first one is Why Seconds Count. And basically what this video shows is fire progression. Fire doubles every 30 seconds. And in this video, and this isn't some video that was made by the fire department to scare people. This was made by an independent lab. I think it was UL Laboratories. It's an independent. And what they want to show is there's a small fire in a trash can. Say somebody at their party emptied an ashtray into a trash can with a lit cigarette. And it starts, there's a clock on the bottom of the screen. And what happens is, from the time you see the first wisp of smoke to the time 2 minutes and 51 seconds later, that entire room is fully involved with fire. And what you have to understand is firefighters, that's why we talk about getting to the fire so fast. We want to get to a fire when it's in the incipient stage. We want to get there when it first is, not a 5 or 10 minute delay in response, so the fire, instead of being in the corner of the room, has a whole room involved or an entire story involved, an entire floor involved. The second video I want you to watch, it's called The City's Playing Russian Roulette. And that video is about the job on 55th Street where the young man, the special needs child, was killed. All right? And the third video is called the Engine 61 Brownout Tragedy. Now, it's happened in 134 Spark Street in the Olney section. Engine 61, which was the closest station, was approximately 10 blocks away, was browned out that day. And what happened was Engine 51, coming from Old York Road, was approximately 20 blocks away. And the result of that fire was 2 young children died and 6 other adults went to the hospital. But the thing that really drove me nuts is, if you watch that, the fire commissioner of the city of Philadelphia made a statement in the newspapers. And I actually wrote it down. It said, how can a fire get moving so fast in the middle of the day? It just doesn't make sense. Well, maybe if Fire Commissioner Lloyd Ayres went to our website and looked at why seconds count, he would understand why fire moves so fast, because it's not us trying to scare you. This is how fire spreads. And the idea that they actually came on and tried to blame the parents of these 2 children that died by saying, well, they tried to fight the fire themselves. Well, these were Cambodian immigrants that were, they tried to help themselves.
Yeah, of course, of course,
So
of course. How many companies are chosen for the brownouts?
3 every day and 3 every night. Now, what they did is they took 2 companies and they Engine 38, which is over in the Wissinoming section, basically they're right off of 95. PennDOT wanted to put a new ramp in, so they knocked down Engine 38 and they were relocating it to another. They're about ready to open it again. They just built a brand new station, so that section of Philadelphia was.
Isn't the mayor a little bit scared of what happened with Mayor Good with that West Philadelphia Osage
Avenue?
Isn't the mayor a little bit afraid that could happen again and there's no firemen around because of brownouts?
I don't think any fire would get as involved as the Osage Avenue fire, because what happened basically, the fire, that was a police operation. Mm-hmm. William Richmond, who was the fire commissioner at the time, probably one of the finest gentlemen and true hero of the fire service, was told basically, you stay over there. This is a police operation. When we need you, we'll call you. And by the time they said, this shit's out of control, hey, could you help us now? And I talked to guys. I didn't make the fire, but I talked to guys that did. And basically, this thing was just a conflagration that was out of control. By the time they said, go get it, it was gone. And that's why 61 houses burned to the ground.
If your son was becoming a fireman today, what would you advise him?
That's a tough question. If he really wanted the job, I would probably try to talk him out of it right now. But if he really wanted the job, I would say study your butt off, get a good training at the academy, and hopefully get a good officer and get to a good station after you get out of fire school, because the essence of firefighting is teamwork. And what has to happen is it's like going into a boxing ring. You got to have your defense, you got to have your offense, you got to know what you're doing. And what you need to go when you come out of fire school, and every time you see a fire and your eyes get to, you need an officer going, yo boy, get your or you need the senior man putting his arm around you. All right, man, come on, I'm right behind you. Let's go. Let's get in there.
So a lot of them are scared.
Absolutely.
When they
Everybody.
go,
if you're not scared, I don't want to be with somebody that's not scared.
Yeah.
Because what
They're
it
too
does.
confident.
That's right.
They're too confident. What's the difference between city firemen and suburban firemen? What's the difference? Because they're on volunteer work. Why?
Well, the most, I think the biggest thing is Philadelphia is an interior firefighting operation.
Okay.
When we pull up to a fire in a house or garage, wherever it's at, it's get in there, get to the base of the fire, control, confine, and get it out. All right. Where, in some I'm not saying all. I don't want to get the volleys mad at me. But, if you got a bunch of 18, 20-year-old kids, and they pull up the fire, they're going to do exterior firefighting. They're going to basically set up guns.
Because they're not getting paid.
They're not getting paid, so they're not going to do it.
And this is to warn everybody out there in the suburbs. I mean, this is from me, not from him, but this is from me. If you live in the suburbs and you have volunteer firemen, it's not have anything against them because they're volunteering for it. But what's their purpose? I mean, sometimes you have to wonder, what is their purpose? If you had anything to say to the mayor, well, first I want to go into, before that, if you let's talk about EMS. I need to, which I forgot about.
All right. Right now, in last year, the city of Philadelphia responded to over 400,000 calls of every nature. That's fire, EMS, car accidents, whatever. Over 400,000. Of those 400,000, over 280,000 were EMS runs. We have 50 medic units. We have 20. There's two different medic units. There's an ALS and a BLS. ALS is advanced life. They're the paramedics that can give you drugs, shark your heart, and the whole 9 yards. BLS is a basic life support, which basically are staffed by EMTs, and they can give you oxygen. They can give you CPR. We have 50 medic units. Of the 50 medic units, 24 of them are full-time 24-hour ALS. 12 are 12-hour day peak. In other words, they're only in there from 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, then they go out of service. 14 BLS units, 9 are 24 hours a day, 3 are 10-hour squads, and 2 are 14-hour squads at night. The Berkshire study, which was a study funded by the Pica statue, because they wanted to find out what all the problems in the city of Philadelphia were, especially with the EMS, saying the call volume that the city of Philadelphia does, they should have anywhere from 110 to 130 medic units in the city of Philadelphia. They said that the average hardworking medic unit should do about 3,000 runs a year. Last year, Medic 7 in the Kensington section of Philadelphia ran 9,000 runs. Triple what the national average they say should be. So if you take 9,000 runs, Medic 7 last year had one call every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And then you wonder why you have burnout from these medics. You wonder why these guys, we have some that have substance abuse problems, or we had
suicide.
We had a gentleman that tried to kill himself a couple months ago. The idea is they're under tremendous stress, and the workload is so over the top. And yet what happened was, a few years ago, a medic named Richie Lawrence put a lawsuit in against the city, and basically it was FLSA, which is basically the Fair Labor Standards Act, and they said, we're not firefighters, we're medics, so we should get paid overtime, anything over 40 hours, because according to that act, because that federal act, firefighters and cops are exempt from that. So that's why when we're working 2 10-hour days and 2 14-hour nights, they don't have to pay us overtime, even though it comes out to about 42 hours a week.
Mike, I don't think the people realize what you're really going through. I know the people does not realize what you want to go through. If you had to tell the people what you would want them to do, could you tell the people what the fireman wants them to do? I mean, what would you say to them?
You need to go to your city council people. You need to go to your state representatives. You need to go to the people that are pulling the purse strings in the city and say, this is what's going on. And
now we know it.
Yeah. And the problem is that you have a system, especially EMS. I mean, I could give you any medic. You stop any medic in the city and ask them what's going on. And one of the big problems, 280,000 runs. Think about that for a minute, how overworked the system is. But one of the biggest problems is there's no call screening. In other words, when you dial 911,
that's what I was just going to say.
All right, and you want a police, and your next door neighbor has a gun, well, he goes highest priority. You call up and say, my neighbor's dog is taking a dump on my front lawn. That's the lowest priority. They don't have that in the fire service.
Okay.
First call, first ambulance.
Wow.
I actually brought, these are computer dispatches that are actually dispatches from stations I've been in, and I'm just going to read some, and these are what they're called out. This is a 28-year-old man with a burning penis. This is a chief complaint was a headache. Now, I brought this up at a thing at the...
and these are dispatch 911 calls,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. This one is, an abscess on the lip. This is Medic 23, all right? This is an advanced life support system that went out because a person had an abscess on their lip. At what point did the call taker say, you know what, put some ice on it, lady?
I mean, aren't they trained?
They're trained to do the way it's set up now. First call gets a first response. And here's one I love.
So you're going to this house of this sick unknown, and I'm having a fire, and I'm maybe last on the list.
Here's the thing. When this Medic 23, which is out at 61st and Thompson,
Right.
41 Station, Mile Station, when they go out for an abscess on a lip, that means that entire section of West Philadelphia is without a rescue squad. All right? Here's one that's good one. Entry is smoked a blunt with wet and doesn't feel good. Apparently they must smoke weed, spray something on it. But this is, the idea.
People, I always say, what does it get to get your attention? I hope this is getting your attention because this is our city. This is our homes. This should get your attention. And now you see why they're not allowed on the media to tell you about it.
One call, I had to do some interviews at Engine 45 up in North Philadelphia, which is a 26 in York. And there was some interviews, and we did it with the SIO, the Special Investigative Officer. And when they were done, I was walking out of the station, and one of the firemen grabbed me. And he said, Chief, you got to hear what happened. I said, what happened? The other night, this is a couple years ago, they said, we got called out at 3 o'clock in the morning for a first responder run. That means that the rescue squad in that station was already out on another call. Mm-hmm. So they got to go first. Then if a rescue squad from another station's got to come into their area to fill in, and a police car show up. So you got 3 pieces of city equipment, and when they got there, an old man was standing there and said, I need somebody to turn down my air conditioner. Now, it gets better. At that time, this is in 2009, I was in something called the Center of Gravity, which was at the Fels Institute of Government at the University of Pennsylvania. And it was a symposium with the entire upper echelon of the city, of the fire department. It was about 35 people in the room, and I'm the union rep. And I bring that story up, and I say, you need to get priority dispatch. You can't have engine companies and ladder companies going out, to turn people's air conditioning down. And the executive officer of the Philadelphia Fire Department turned around to me and said, that's our job. And I told him, you can't be everything to all people. Mm-hmm. And Everett Gillison, the mayor's director of public safety, was sitting right next to me, and I went, come on, really? Is that what we were about? Turning down people's air conditioner? Because at that point, when Engine 45 went inside to turn that man's air conditioner, that whole area around 26 and Newark had no fire protection.
I was told years ago that a person that would call 911 because they wanted a trip to the hospital, and they wanted a free trip to the hospital because the hospital emergency room was free.
Well,
so I guess if the fire department goes or they go, they're going to take them to the hospital or whatever, and they're going to get a free medical care because the hospital has to give it to them.
No, I think what happens is a lot of people are under the impression that if you go in a rescue squad and you come reeling in on a gurney, you're going to go to the head of the line.
Right.
And what happens is there's triage in every hospital emergency room.
Okay.
So they'll say, what's the matter with him? Oh, he's got an abscess on his lip. Well, tell him to sit over there. We'll get to him in about 5 hours.
You must be frustrated. I mean, you had to be frustrated. And I'm sure you're frustrated with the firemen that are out there. I know they're frustrated now, and you're out.
Yeah.
So I know they're frustrated. We're coming to the end of the show, but I want a couple things. I want one to give your website out so people can see it because we're going to put it on our website. Right. That's one.
It's IAFF22.org.
The other thing is, if you had to say anything to the mayor, what would you say?
Now, first I would like to say something to Lloyd Ayers. I came on this job when Rizzo was the mayor and his brother Joe was the fire commissioner. And those people, and Bill Richmond and Roger Olshafer and Harold Hairston, there was something about what we did, and they understood our job. And I mean, Bill Richmond used to come and stop in firehouses and have a cup of coffee with the men. And this is what Lloyd has gotten away from. He hasn't stopped in a firehouse and sat down with the men and say, "What's on your mind, fellas? What's, you know?" When Roger Olshafer was in there and we had, you know, uniforms that were our T-shirts, where we had company pride, and we'd had, you know, the Ridge Runners from, you know, the guys that ran Ridge Avenue, North Philly, or the North Philly Cowboys at Engine 50, or, you know, these guys had pride and they had their T-shirts on with, all right, this is us. And now that we got a new policy on clothing, and I understand the idea that, you know, everybody should be uniformed, but don't take away our pride. Don't take away company pride, because you need to understand this is it. This is what we do. And get back to it. You think when people pull up to a fire that the people whose house on fire care what kind of T-shirt you got on? Inspire. Man, bring these guys together. You got the opportunity to do something great, and you don't. And it's a shame, because Lloyd, you used to be a good guy. And
What do we have to do, the people, to make him?
It ain't going to happen.
It's not going to happen. How about the mayor?
The mayor. This is Mike Kane to Michael Nutter, and you listen real good. Back in April, we had 2 firefighters killed. I sat in Danny Sweeney's funeral when you got up and gave a eulogy and said, "I wish Danny was my friend." Well, guess what? 4 months after they have died, the city of Philadelphia's fire department has yet to do the paperwork for the federal funds that are available to the Sweeney and Neary family. That's a disgrace. So after you get done getting your ass kissed down at Democratic convention and getting your ego stroked, why don't you come back to City Hall, call up Lloyd Ayres, get his ass in front of your goddamn desk, and you know, I promised my wife I wouldn't curse, but I get Lloyd Ayres in front of you and find out why those people, the paperwork hasn't even been filed to get those people the money that they deserve. It's an absolute disgrace. You should hang your head in shame, Nutter, and so should Lloyd Ayres. The idea that 4 months after 2 of our members are dead and buried, that their families haven't been compensated by the federal government because your people didn't file the goddamn paperwork. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Michael Nutter.
And with that, I want to thank Michael Kane for coming on, saying it like it is, and let's hope it makes a difference. And I'm going to make sure my expertise trying to make a difference. But I want to thank you for coming on and saying it like it is, because a lot of people cannot do this. When I said at the beginning, I hope to get your attention, I think I did. And please learn from this. Please learn from this and do something. Open up your mouth. Open up your mouth. Don't forget, next week we're on at 7 o'clock at night, and it's Are We Doomed? Enough is Enough. It's going to be another exciting show, because I'm going to say it like it is. This is Pearl Polto, as always, making the most of your credit, giving credit where credit's due. Today, it's to the firemen, and to this week, it's to 9/11. See you next week.